Welcome back, everyone. Let's go ahead and do a quick little comparison between the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 6s in 2021. Now, what I can tell you is that these two phones are pretty old. I've already done still worth the videos on both. And when it comes down to it, if you can't afford it, I would recommend getting something like an iPhone 10, an iPhone 10R, which those will be linked down below. But definitely between these two, you're going to be seeing a pretty big difference between these two phones, mostly because the 6S very soon may be unsupported, where the iPhone 7 is still going to get support potentially with iOS 15, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now, side by side, you can see pretty much the same thing going on. They both have 4.7-inch panels on the front. Both of them are IPS panels, and none of them are super crazy. I mean, when you look at them and you look at them side by side, I don't even think you'd be able to tell which phone is which, to be honest. Definitely the iPhone 7 is on the right, though. The iPhone 6s is on the left. So in terms of the front, they pretty much have the same exact thing going on, except when you get to the bottom, as always, you have, the headphone jack on the iPhone 6s, where you don't have it on the iPhone 7. So those are pretty much the major differences between these two phones. On the sides, pretty much the same exact thing going on. Volume buttons, power buttons on the side, we all know that. Now on the back, a little bit of a difference. You can definitely see we both have aluminum backs, but on the iPhone 7, we do have pretty much that matte texture-ish, kind of, not really matte, it feels a little bit more like matte in my opinion. With the iPhone 6s, had that aluminum build, cellular connection lines right here that we could see. And I think the iPhone 7 design was a little bit more modern, but I still like the iPhone 6s design because it just looked so cool, and it still looks pretty good even now in 2021. Now, that pretty much covers it up. In terms of the outside, nobody really cares about the rest of these phones, to be completely honest. These things are pretty old. Now, software-wise, as stated before, this is pretty much the biggest difference between these two. The iPhone 6s, in my opinion, had a pretty good run. It started off, many, many years ago in 2015, and when it first came out, I don't even know what software it had, maybe like iOS 8 or iOS 9, but it's still not a bad version of software on iOS 14. So far, my experience on this phone has been pretty positive. All the videos that I've done about the iPhone 6s on iOS 14, throughout I've said starting off every single OS is not perfect, and when you run the latest software on the oldest supported phone, which this one is, it's not going to be a perfect experience. I've run into a lot of issues, I ran into a lot of bugs, a lot of glitchiness, things not working, this or that. But at the end of the day, it works, it still turns on, and the basic functions are still there too. So that's a pretty important thing to keep in mind. Now, when you have a device like an iPhone 7, overall, it's going to net you a more positive experience. And the main reason for this is because the iPhone 7, from what we're reading and from what we're seeing, it's going to be giving you a longer lasting phone. So because this thing came out a year after this, so this thing came out in 2016, about 5 years ago, the iPhone 7 is set to still maintain software updates at iOS 15, even potentially further. Right now, the iPhone 6s, 6s Plus, and iPhone SE are set to end on iOS 14. So this software that you're getting right now is pretty much going to be the last software that you're getting. So this is probably the biggest difference between these two phones right now. I'm going to do a speed test in a second. That may be a pretty big difference too, maybe. But I'll definitely tell you when it comes down to it, that's pretty much the biggest reason to pick this specific phone up. Not even for the software that it's on right now for iOS 14, but because of the software update that's going to be coming out potentially. Now, again, I have no way to verify this. I'm not an insider. I don't have any knowledge. If you just Google iPhone 6s iOS 15, you'll see a bunch of leaks and stuff coming out. But from what we're seeing, the iPhone 6s is set to pretty much be ending off with iOS 14. So that's pretty much the biggest difference between these two. So keep that in mind. I'm not necessarily going to say you should automatically get an iPhone 7, but that's a pretty big difference. However, the 6s is still set to get security updates for a little bit of time as well. So in terms of that pretty much covers up that. Now let's go ahead and do a speed test between these two phones. It's going to be very random, but it's going to be very entertaining. Now, obviously, the 6s had that A9 chip inside of it with 2 gigs of RAM, the first iPhone to bring 2 gigs. With the iPhone 7 has that Apple A10 Fusion chip inside of it with 2 gigs of RAM as well. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Now, looking at these things side by side, it's just so funny. This thing looks like just old people kind of batting it out. So let's go ahead and load these apps up. Let's go and do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. And I apologize if the table moves too much. That one's about the same on both. Let's go into settings, 3, 2, 1. And you can see pretty much the same thing too. Scrolling through, pretty much getting the same type of performance on both, surprisingly. Let's do App Store, 3, 2, 1. And you can see iPhone 7 definitely loaded that one up faster than the iPhone 6s. Let's go ahead and scroll through, and you can see pretty much the same thing going on, but I was able to tell for sure the iPhone 7 was much faster there for sure. Now let's go and start loading up these apps up. Let's do Facebook, 3, 2, 1. And you can see again, iPhone 7 I think was the faster one there. Let's go and do Twitter. 3, 2, 1. And you can see again the iPhone 7 was the faster one there for sure yet again. Let's do Snapchat. 3, 2, 1. And again, iPhone 7 faster, iPhone 6s a little bit behind. Instagram. 3, 2, 1. And again, actually the iPhone 6s was the faster one there. Surprisingly, I was not expecting that one. Netflix. 3, 2, 1. And iPhone 6s I think was slightly faster. They're very, very close though, but just slightly faster. Bofa. 3, 2, 1. And you can see again, I don't actually know. It was pretty close. They look kind of like hand in hand. I think the 6S may have been a little bit faster. Quizlet. 3, 2, 1. iPhone 7 faster, iPhone 6s a little bit behind. Dropbox. 3, 2, 1. Again, I don't know. This one was very close on both as well. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm kind of seeing more similarities than differences. Thank you. 3, 2, 1. And I think the iPhone 7 was faster. I'm surprised it took that long on both. Maybe the iPhone 7 was faster. Gameplay wise, it's probably going to be around the same, but definitely the iPhone 7 may have been a little bit faster. Fruit Ninja. 3, 2, 1. Now, this is going to get butchered on both because there was basically some random update that happened and it really screwed up everything that I ever worked for in these videos. And you can probably see, I think maybe the success was faster, but again, we're on an updated version here, and it's just a very strange update overall. Temple Run. 2, 3, 2, 1. And they're both kind of stuck. Okay, so the iPhone 7 or the iPhone 6s may actually have loaded that one up faster. Very, very close on both. And honestly, I don't know which one is faster. They both kind of have the same thing going on. I think more times than not, the iPhone 7 was probably the faster one, if I'm being honest. But the iPhone 6s also, beat ahead. Even in this specific game, it did beat ahead of the iPhone 6s. So I don't know what it is. I mean, it definitely isn't one that's, way faster. I would not go from the iPhone 7 or the iPhone 6s to each other based on the performance. I think there's other criteria, but I'm actually pretty surprised how well the iPhone 6s did here. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers it up. I guess I can kind of go ahead and hit on the cameras right now, even though it's not a big deal. We have 12 megapixel cameras on both on the back, and there's really not a huge point in debating them too much. I mean, definitely the iPhone 7 may be the better camera setup. We have 4K on both, which is great. No 4K at 60. The front cameras have kind of like the same thing going on too, so there's not a major difference between them either. So that pretty much covers it up in the camera standpoint. Now, to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, should you go ahead and pick up an iPhone 7 or should you go and buy an iPhone 6s in 2021? Well, what I can tell you is that there's pros and cons for both these devices. I, for one, would not necessarily go from an iPhone 6s to an iPhone 7. I would not go through all the trouble of buying one and putting all my credit card info and all that stuff just to buy an iPhone 7. Now, if you have a way older device, let's say you have an iPhone 5 or you have an iPhone or like a Galaxy S3 or something, I think getting one of these phones is the better way to go. But the iPhone 7, hands down, is going to be the better one. As stated before, in case you're watching this on my third channel, pretty much the biggest differentiating factor here isn't the camera, isn't the battery life, isn't the performance, it's the software. Potentially, from what we're hearing, the software experience on the iPhone 7 is going to last much longer than what we're getting on the iPhone 6s. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to sit here, like I stated before, and tell you to go get an iPhone 7, but it is the better, choice between these two. But as I stated before, I would highly recommend picking up something other than these two phones. I would recommend picking up an iPhone 10. Even an iPhone 8 is a much better deal than this. An iPhone 8 Plus is like a beautiful phone, but I think the iPhone 10 is the best one in terms of the price tag. And it's just one generation newer, technically, than the iPhone 7. So that's exactly what I would say. I still think both these phones have a lot of pros. I think because these things are still supported, the 6S being the one on the left, it's still being supported and it came out over 5 years ago. That says a lot about this phone, and it will potentially still be getting security updates and everything like that. So this device still has a lot of capability when it comes down to that aspect. And the iPhone 7 is also getting better with time. It's gotten better, I think, in my experience from having iOS 12, iOS 11, iOS 13. iOS 14, I think, has been a better ride on the iPhone, 7 than the previous versions of software, which is so funny. But I'll definitely tell you, the iPhone 7 is a better way to go, but the iPhone 6s is still very similar to the iPhone 7 in 2021. So that really pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.